Hi, everyone. My name is Oladele, and I'm the co-founder and the executive director of the African Cancer Support Group. We support cancer patients, cancer survivors, caregivers, and their families. We are trying to destigmatize cancer in the Black community. Today, I'm here with Pastor Bola Oladosu, who is going to tell us her journey with cancer and how she is thriving. Good day.
Thank you so much for having you, Mima.
Yeah. Please, can you introduce yourself briefly and let us know who you are?
Thank you so much for having me, Sister Oladele. And thank you to the African Cancer Support Group. My name is Bola Oladosu. Yes, I'm a pastor. I'm also a social worker. Currently, I do mental health therapy. So I'm a mental health therapist. I came to this point actually because of cancer diagnosis many years ago. I'm originally an engineer and a geologist by training, and decided that I was going to just quit everything and go back to school. And I changed my career, and it's probably one of the best decisions of my life. So yeah, that's who I am. I'm on a healing journey. I was diagnosed with cancer many years ago, and it's just been miracles upon miracles. I'll be excited to share my journey with you.
Thank you, Pastor Bola. We thank God for your healing. So can you tell us briefly about how the journey started? How did you feel? And the people around you?
Thank you. When the journey started, actually, I wish it started today that we have all of the support and a little bit of some destigmatization within the community. However, at the time, it was very lonely. And actually, at the time when I was diagnosed with cancer, I did not know anybody within the community or around that had openly stepped out to say, this is the situation. So it was very, very lonely. I didn't know what to do with the information. I didn't have knowledge about it. All I just knew is, they say you have cancer. It kind of just feels like, that's the end of the road, and that's like a death sentence. That's all we knew about cancer. And so it was just like swimming in an ocean, like alone. But I thank God because I think a lot of other things in life prepare you for situations like that. Knowing God was one of my, if not the only thing that I had, actually. I had God. I still do, and I have my family. For them, it was also new. They didn't know what to do with the information. I jokingly explained it in a way to people that for a couple of days, I couldn't even tell my children, I think for like 2 days. The house became so quiet. It was kind of like there was sadness everywhere. Typically, at the time, the children were still at home, and our house is bubbly, loud, and, it's a place you would want to be. And all of a sudden, I remember that it was one of my wake-up call. It was like an aha moment that I just went to the kitchen to pick up something in the fridge, and the kids kind of escaped. They didn't want me to see them or something. And I said to myself, what's going on here? I'm not living like this, and nobody's going to be happy around me anymore. No. And that was kind of like one of the things that started it off for me to start to think. And I started to do research. I started to talk about it. when I first came out to talk about it, I remember that somebody saw it on YouTube. I had gone for a program and I decided I was going to talk about it. And somebody saw it on YouTube and called me from another and was shouting, I was very, and my mom called me and was like, how do you tell the whole world that you have cancer? Why would you do that? Nobody does that. Do you know anybody who's done that? I said, well, I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to walk this journey. I am happy that I did. I'm forever grateful to God that I decided to come out. I have seen so much changes over the last couple of years. Thank you to your foundation and the support group. So that was the first thing. And I did follow through with standard care protocols. I didn't take anything for granted. I got help, both medical help for the diagnosis. After a while, I realized that there were a lot of emotional and psychological need within me and things happening. So I also went to seek help myself. I went into therapy. And so that was how I started the journey.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, viewers. So, Pastor Bola, what type of cancer were you diagnosed with? What was the initial shock like?
I was diagnosed with breast cancer. These days, when I talk about the breast cancer, I want to be specific because a lot of times also we say breast cancer, we don't know what kind of breast cancer. It's good to know. I was diagnosed with estrogen-positive breast cancer. And it was interesting, even though in a negative way at the time, because one of the things that happens when you're diagnosed with breast cancer and what makes it different from other forms of cancer in a woman is that it has to do with your image because it's your breast. So one of the places in the body where a woman feels good about is her breast. And so when you're diagnosed with breast cancer, it's kind of like you're losing part of your body. If you have maybe colon cancer or something that is in one of the organs and they're able to take it out, nobody would probably ever know. But when I was diagnosed and it was breast cancer, so that's one of the things that started to bother me. I started to think, okay, now I'm going to have double mastectomy. I made a decision at the time, even though I didn't. I'm like, I'm going to have double mastectomy, and this is what it is, how I'm going to lose my breast. And even though, of course, the desire to live wanted me to do that, but it wasn't because it was okay with me. It was just because I wanted to be alive. I didn't want to take any chances. But then thinking about the fact that, I'm going to lose my breast. How would my husband feel about it? Would I love my body after that? Would it affect my image, my self-esteem? I didn't know what it would bring. And I do know that this is one of the things that happen to women and they have to deal with. So that's something that was big. I remember when I went to the surgeon and he was like, why do you want to have a double mastectomy? Okay, we're not doing that now. We want to do treatment and all of that. Being breast cancer made it a little, plus breast cancer is one of the leading cause of death, in women diagnosed with cancer. So again, you're thinking, but again, it's also one of the types of cancer that has they've done a lot of research on it. There's a lot of information, lots of treatment options, advancement. So that's also a good thing.
Wow, thank you. I don't know if you've heard before, my mom actually passed of breast cancer. And when my husband was diagnosed, I'm like, what did I do for cancer? What's my problem with cancer? And people that know me knows that I'm busy enough. But this now became my passion. Kind of because, like, I became passionate that no. And because of our lived experience, I'm like, no, people should not go through cancer alone. My mom went through it alone. She had double mastectomy. I didn't even know what cancer was. They didn't tell us it was cancer at the beginning. We thought it was malaria. So they were treating her with this capsule, red and green capsule, tetracycline or whatever it's called. Then they did mastectomy for her. They sent her home. There was no follow-up. And you can imagine the excruciating pain. We had to get a friend of hers that was in a medical school. Can you imagine? Please come. He was living in front of our house, opposite our house then. You can imagine the excruciating pain that people that go through cancer, that they experience. And when my husband too was diagnosed, the pain, because his own was multiple myeloma, bone and blood, cancer of the plasma cells. So why is it that people around me are always going through cancer that has to do with pain? It was too much for me. And I decided not to keep quiet. And this is because since I came to Canada, a lot of people have died of cancer. Is it that you hear when they are dead or when it was too late? I'm not saying that when people help, people will still not die. But I believe that when one person is praying and 10 people are praying, God is hearing 10 people's prayers. So I decided to speak up. And the community helped us. So I'm going to put it to you. What do you think is the stigma in our community? Or why is it that we have that stigma in the community? And what are the stigma that we need to overcome in the community?
Thank you so much for asking me that question, because that's something that I'm very passionate about. And the reason is because apart from the fact that when you have this cancer diagnosis, of course, you start thinking about, hey, am I living? Am I dying? But then people also start to look at you like you're dying. And I'm not making that, I'm not saying that lightly at all. Not also trying to read people's mind, no. It is people's reaction, and there's no blame. It's just a culture that we have come to know. Is that because people also don't know any better that you can leave? People are like, they start to treat you like, and I'll give you an example. Well-meant conversations. People would even say things like, don't tell her, no need to tell her. That don't discuss that thing with her. Don't need to discuss it with her. Because in their mind subconsciously, they are helping you. Oh, you are sick. Even when you are not sick. Yeah. So that you don't have to deal with stuff. But they do not realize that they are taking away your life. Because those details are your life.
Yes.
So people start to treat you differently, subconsciously. They relate with you differently, subconsciously. Somebody said the other day, don't do that thing to her. Is she the one you will be doing that thing to? So those little things, and I don't want to take too much time dwelling on it. I have so many examples. Those little things, pity. People start to pity you. Good intentions, they're pitying you. So all of those messages pass on to people who have cancer diagnosis as, they don't matter anymore. Plus, of course, they are also going through a lot, so they are probably moody. Actually, I was telling somebody a few days ago, I said, I'm a happy person. And I'm sorry, with all sense of responsibility, I'm a very happy person. Growing up, I'm happy. I'm always happy. But one of the things that I did notice over a couple of years is that after the cancer diagnosis and some stressors and things, I started to have mood swings.
Yes.
And which is not palatable for people around you, especially maybe caregivers, your children, family members. So that also kind of triggers them to behave in a certain way. So it's not just people, it's me too. It's, people with diagnosis. So you start to, maybe I'm a little touchy, things that I would probably just brush aside before. I would read a little bit of meaning to it, react a little bit. So those are the things. Stigma is it's not just in our community.
Yes.
Actually, even in other communities, there's always stigma. With critical illness, cancer is terminal. It's not always terminal, though. People always think, oh, it's terminal. No, it's not always terminal. There are options. There are treatments. There are miracles.
Yes.
God heals. I'm one of people that have received that healing. So I believe it very much. I say it, God heals.
Yes.
He already healed us. But at the same time, there are also other options. There are options. So it's not a death sentence, but because people think, I think that's the genesis of it, people start to relate with you differently. They think, you're stigmatized. You start to feel somehow. So education, I always say, a lot of times people don't mean harm. So education is key. When people get educated, when they know better, they do better. One of my best quotes is Maya Angelou says, we do what we know. When we know better, we do better. So people need to know that cancer is just another critical illness that can be managed. I know people who have been on blood pressure medications for 50-something years.
Yes.
There are people who've been on diabetic medication, managing it with food, diet, and all of that for decades. Same with cancer. So it's not a death sentence. People's life should not stop. Quality of life should not totally diminish. Of course, there are new realities. And I want to round up on this, on that, but there are new realities when you have cancer. For example, somebody saw me today and said, oh, I see you've lost a lot of weight. And I told the person about the diagnosis. And I also said, but it's not the diagnosis, not the cancer that made me, that's another thing. There's a stigma. When people, when people see me and I say, oh, you lost a lot of weight, and I say, oh yeah, I was diagnosed with cancer a while ago. They think it's the cancer. It's not the cancer. It's a decision that I made to lose weight, to, make better choices with food, eat healthy and all of that. So those are the things that happen. And we just have to just keep telling people it's not a one-day journey. Just keep educating people and keep telling people, no, cancer is just like people may be on medications, they may be on treatment, but they can live normal lives. Things may have changed for them. They may need better support and kind of include them in the society. Not exclude people because they have a cancer diagnosis, but include them. Don't make them feel like there are people who maybe because of their diagnosis, they can't walk properly and they have to use wheelchair. There are people who they have to carry some gadgets.
Yes.
There's so many things that happen. I remember one of my, I traveled during one of my treatments and I couldn't walk very well. And when I was checking in for my flight, I asked for assistance. And I met Nigerians on that flight who were like, why is she on wheelchair? I'm like telling everybody, yeah, this is why I'm on wheelchair. I could walk, but I just decided, you know what? I didn't want to carry my luggage by myself. I didn't want to do stuff by myself because I didn't want to, risk anything.
Yes.
So those are the things. Just feeling comfortable too, if you have a diagnosis, talking about it. Every drop fills the bucket. Every drop of water fills the bucket. So
Wow.
let's keep doing one thing after the other.
Wow, thank you. Like you said, technology is actually increasing. Cancer research is also increasing. When my husband was diagnosed, the doctor didn't think it would last 1 week. Then he said, oh, maybe a month. Then so maybe it's 5 years something. So we saw him last week. Say, oh, okay. And they've not seen anything. We were even asking him, so what do you look for? They showed us. For the past 5 years, they've not seen anything. I said, I told you we pray a lot. He was just laughing. So I told you we pray a lot. Why am I saying that is people think when they hear cancer, it's a death sentence. Mm-hmm. And you know, the way people look at you, sometimes when they see me, say, hey, ask my brother, like he's doing fine. So it's like people actually expecting the other way around. I'm like, oh, he's doing fine. And if he's there, I'm like, oh, he's right there. Then you see the countenance, you see their faces. I'm like, okay, what were they expecting? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's one of the reasons why people don't even want to talk. Mm-hmm. Because what people expect in the community or something is, oh, maybe when they hear people have cancer, the person is gone. I remember when he was at the hospital one day, actually it's going to be like 7 years now, April 2016. His first chemo sent him back to the hospital for the next 1 month. Mm-hmm. And what was he had the hiccups. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the news spread in the community. So people came. If at a point, the hospital said no more visitors. But I remember this couple came. They were tiptoeing. The husband was in the front. The wife was on top. Like, they just did their head like this. Thankfully, my husband was eating. He was eating pounded yam and egusi. I remember that day. I was just too emotional. I couldn't take a picture. If it was now, I would have. So, and I'm like, why are you tiptoeing? He said, oh, they heard that Mr. Oladele, that he died of cancer. I'm like, died again. Okay, this is him. Because I was cutting. So this is him eating. So the husband came and said, okay, I will eat with you so I can tell those people that said it, that I ate with him. So you can imagine. That conversation or that picture, I don't think it will leave my head. Mm-hmm. So you can. And I think that is why people don't want to talk about it. But we are just trying to tell people that the fact that people are thinking otherwise doesn't mean people should be isolated. Mm-hmm. And this takes me to my next question to you. Cancer can make people to be isolated, can deal with people. Mm-hmm. What are the mental health things or issues that cancer patients or survivors go through? What do you think is their mental health state first when they hear the diagnosis, during the treatment, or even while they are going through the journey?
Thank you. That brings me to something that's also always on my mind. Is about loss. So when you're diagnosed with cancer, of course, people think, oh, maybe this person's going to die. And, so generally we're thinking that the loss is when if that person dies. But actually what happens is that when you're diagnosed with cancer, you lose many things. So there's a lot of loss. And because there's a lot, anytime there is loss in mental health, there's grieving. You will grieve. If for any reason you get out of your house tomorrow morning, you open your garage doors and your cars are not there, whoa, that's a big loss. Because then you'll be like, first there is, it's like you feel violated. Somebody really came into my house and stole my car, and then you don't have a car to use. Yes. So there's a loss. So it's as small as that and as big as losing your income, losing your partner, not losing your partner to death, no, but losing something in your partner. Now, if you would allow me, every aspect of a cancer patient and their families are affected. Everything is affected. Your finances, your sex life, your interactions. So, because now you're thinking about how to live.
Yes.
You're thinking about what to do. For me, I remember I'm thinking, change my diet. Now I have to buy this. I have to cook this. There's just too many things happening. It's like everybody now has to walk around the diagnosis to make me feel comfortable, to help me. I'm feeling like I'm a very independent person. I feel like maybe I'm hardworking, maybe. So I don't want somebody, I want to do my thing. There were things I couldn't do at the time. So now, I remember when I was in the hospital, they have to come and see me in the hospital. So they have to go to work and they still have to come to the hospital every day. That's a lot. And they have to cook. It's just everything, so there is a big loss. And we tend to not realize, we think, okay, especially when you're doing well, when you are healed, when you're doing well with your treatment or anything, it's also easy to just ignore the patient and feel like, okay, this person is fine. You should be just fine. Forgetting that this person is thinking. There's a lot of things going on in this person's mind about what has happened. So there's just a lot of emotion. Plus, cancer treatment brings a lot of side effects. There's a lot of fatigue. I remember when I was taking radiation, my skin was peeling. If I sit on a chair, you wouldn't want to sit on that chair because there's a lot of, my skin was peeling. I was feeling uncomfortable. I didn't fully understand. I was feeling depressed. I'm pretty sure I was feeling really depressed. But I was having a lot of anxiety, just 1,001 things are going on at the same time. And this is the same for the family members. In fact, there was a day, just shortly after I was diagnosed, I was coming down to the living room in my house. And then I have one of my pictures in the living room. And I saw my son looking at the picture. He didn't know that I was coming behind him. And he was looking at the picture and there were tears in his eyes. So I didn't even know how long he's been there. But obviously, he's looking at that picture and probably thinking, hey, my mom. So when I came in, he was startled a little bit and he turned and saw me. I could see there were tears in his eyes. He was crying. So those are the things, they would wake up in the night. I don't know what, I probably will never know what they went through, So my advice is please get help. Get help, connect yourself to a psychologist. Actually, when it comes to cancer diagnosis, there is psychosocial oncology.
Yes.
So connect to psychosocial oncology, get all the information. You don't have to agree with everything. I do find, and full disclosure, I'm a registered social worker and I'm a mental health therapist. However, I'm going to say this. I do care more about the people than any system. And sometimes I find that the system does not necessarily give you what you need. Just like treatment is the same with psychosocial oncology. I find that they put you in a box. Sometimes, not all the time, not everybody. I'm a mental health therapist and I don't like to put people in a box, but it does happen that it doesn't mean that if you go for help and you're not liking the help you're getting, please change. Ask questions, connect with not-for-profit organizations, go online and search. You have alternatives. Talk to your family doctor about getting another route to it. Because sometimes I find also that the system kind of put cancer patients in a box. So they feel like, oh, this person is diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, so they're going to die anyway. And they start to talk to you about death and everything, when that's not the route that you want to take.
Exactly.
You're supposed to ask this person, what are you expecting? You know, what can I support you with? What are you going through? Yes, I have to tell you the truth, but I'm not an oncologist. I am a mental health therapist. So don't be discouraged by that, because I find that happens sometimes. People just now start to feel like, oh, hey, these people, they will just be talking to you about death and all of that. No, it's not everybody. Get help somewhere else. Don't because of that not get help. You know, don't because of that, close that door. There's help everywhere. The African Cancer Support Group have people that you can talk to, people who are even cancer survivors. So please get help. That's the one thing about mental health. You cannot do it all by yourself. You need help. As you're praying, get help.
Thank you. I know you are a pastor. I just want to ask, what role did faith play in your journey?
Everything. For me, sitting here today, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have God. I wouldn't be. And I also do want to actually link that also to everybody else, because you see, faith, aside the fact that I was miraculously healed, and I'm being miraculously healed, I'm going through a healing journey.
Amen.
One of the things that does not help cancer is stress. So how you feel matters. And when you know that you have God, when you have faith in God, it helps you to even feel better, because then you have hope. When you are hopeless, I don't know how much treatment can work, even when you're taking the treatment. So both ways, for me, faith is a win-win. It's a win-win situation for you, because then you turn to God and you focus on your maker. At the same time, that's also even helping you, aside the fact that you are praying. There was something you actually said earlier, and now I remember, about, not allowing the stigma and people's bias to affect you, and talking about it openly, which I did. But I don't want to leave here today without mentioning the fact that there's a responsibility on cancer patients, and a responsibility on the community and the society to not take it for granted. And especially when it comes to the place of faith, just like you talked about somebody coming and saying, oh, they said Mr. Oladele had passed when he's fully alive and well.
You didn't bandage, yeah.
He didn't bandage. He's in the studio with us today. I've seen him. However, what happens is that you, in the place of faith, you don't want people to speak negative to you.
Yes.
And so you also do have to be a little careful. I don't want to leave here without saying that. Sometimes there may be people you want to keep out of your circle. Yeah. If you find that somebody cannot take the news yet, maybe a family member, you don't have to say it right off. You have to think about it and who to share with, who to pray with, because you don't want people praying doubt into your life. You want people who just don't want you to be alive, but believe that you can be alive. They're two separate things.
Yeah, right. See, at the hospital, some people will come and they will say some words. If you don't know what to say to someone in the hospital, just don't go. I'm serious. Just don't go. Some people will come, they will say some things. Right? You're right that There are some people that you want to take out of your circle. Just keep them out. Of course, you are not fighting with them. You still say hi, but you just keep them keep them away, keep a distance, because you don't want people to talk negative to your life. So whatever they have said, you just have to prayerfully turn it into positive, right? I've had so many things. As it's coming here, it's just going out. And I just try to keep distance. I am not fighting with anybody, but people will come and just say some things. It's like when people die. If you don't know what to say, stay in your house. Just don't go. Right. And that takes me to grief. You mentioned grief. During cancer diagnosis, it brings grief to the family. In my church, I kind of facilitate grief share. And grief is not just when people die. There is grief when people lose their jobs, when people are diagnosed with sickness, grief in so many ways. So we are talking about cancer today, and there is grief, different stages of grief. So as a mental health therapist, what do you think, and what stages of grief do you think people that are diagnosed with cancer go through, and how can they come out of it?
Thank you. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So what you were talking about is anticipated grief. So when people are diagnosed with cancer, they didn't lose that person, but then there's lots of loss, and people deal with it. And it's not the fact that somebody has dealt with the loss of their finances doesn't mean they have dealt with the loss of their active sexual life.
Yes.
There's just so many losses, and dealing with the losses is not necessarily going to be at the same time, and there are stages to it. So this is part of what I talk about when I'm talking about education, because when people don't know that, they don't even know that you're grieving the loss of, for example, people who have breast cancer, double mastectomy, or one mastectomy. There's a grief of loss of body parts, something is not there anymore. How a 50-something-year-old woman has had her breast all her life, all of a sudden there's no breast, your body, it's just different. And there's a loss going. So if the people around you don't recognize that, maybe you are even at a denial stage. So there are stages, of course, for grieving. Maybe you are at the stage where you are even in denial. Hey, no, this is, you feel like, life has ended. Yeah. There's nothing else. I'm not good enough anymore. And all of the thoughts and all of that. So people around you need to understand. You need to understand. That's why I also said that you need help. You need, psychological help. So when people go through that, eventually people start to accept. There's radical acceptance. You start to accept it. You start to deal with it. You start to do other things. You are able. There are times that people don't even want to get help. Recognize that they're just in that phase. Doesn't mean that that's where they're going to be. One of the things that happened with me, for example, was, those days when I would cry, maybe I would just be like, cancer. Why? What? Like, what did I do? It's like, what did I do wrong? Why they have to be? We have so many things, And my husband be like, he doesn't even know why I'm crying. Like, he feels like, you don't have to cry. You're doing well. Everything is fine, But even the fact that you've been through so much, and I'm a preacher of don't look back. I call it the Lot syndrome. Don't look back. There's nothing in life to look back, to just move forward. Take a day at a time, take one step at a time. Learn from the bad, but nothing to, any time. In fact, any time in life you sit down and you're thinking about the negative things in the past, you're drowning. You have reversed. It's like you're going to you're the highway. You're going somewhere and you reverse. Now you're going to have to catch up on that distance. That's any time anytime I tell myself, anytime you look back, so it's really nothing to look back to, but what happens is that anytime, if people around you understand, they will help you better. So grief, you just need to recognize it, get help, understand the stages that, okay, this is where I am right now. I was with somebody not too long ago, and that's one of the other things that I do in the community, where maybe people pass away, they would call me and things like that. And I was somewhere, and somebody, a man, I think about 2 weeks ago, actually, 2 weekends ago, and he was crying. He was talking about his dad, and he started to cry. They're like, stop. Somebody said, okay, now, we're going to stop this conversation. We're not going to have this conversation anymore. He's not crying. I'm like, let him cry.
Yeah. It's good.
Don't tell people how to grieve.
Yes.
We are different. Some people cry when we have a culture where they think you should cry at a particular time. Then at a particular time, they are going to decide when you shouldn't cry. They would decide how long you would cry. People just have all of those definitions of how things should be like. No. The fact that somebody is not crying doesn't mean they're not grieving. Doesn't mean they don't need attention. In fact, sometimes when they're not crying, it's worse because they're internalizing. Sometimes when people cry, they let out and they're just fine. I remember there was even one day I got into my car, drove in the middle of the night. Everybody was sleeping in the house. I'm not sure anybody knew that I went out. I got into, because I wanted to cry. And I wanted to cry loud. And it wasn't because of anything. I just wanted to let out. I was bottled up. And I got into my car. I drove, some distance, parked at a McDonald's in town, and I shouted in my car. I cried. Then I prayed, and I was just fine. Went back home, and I had a good sleep. So don't tell. I'm pretty sure if they knew I was, don't go. I'm sure they would say I shouldn't go. And I'm not saying that. What does crying do? Crying will make you have headache too, and all of that, of course. But, I'm not saying be crying or anything, but I'm just saying that today, sometimes I look back to, I'm like, some of the things I did, they were not necessary. Come on, eat and sleep.
Because you have passed that stage, right?
Yes.
You have passed
They're not necessary, especially with a person of faith. Sometimes I'm ashamed of myself. I'm like, I'm a preacher. I tell people to believe God. Who am I not to believe God, but, then sometimes.
Look, the fact that you cried, the fact that you were sober, the fact that you felt the way you felt or whatever you did doesn't make you a bad preacher. It should even strengthen you. That tells you that you're a human being. Even Jesus Christ felt pain because he came as a man. He went through all this journey of pain, right? So who are we? Right? Who are we?
In fact, you know what my son said one day? One day I called my son. One of my sons very emotional, so I called him and I was unleashing on him my feelings. I was talking to him, and of course, it was just momentary. In the next 2-3 minutes, I was fine. And I was now feeling bad, like,
why did I dump all this on the boy?
Dump all this on this poor boy who is alone and where he is? Why did I do this? And then me and him were praying later, and I was talking about, and I was saying, oh, why am I, doing this? Why, God, I must be ungrateful. After everything you've done for me, what's even making me cry? What's the cry about? Or, and then when he was praying, because we had finished talking and everything, and we prayed, and he was praying, and when he was praying, he said what to say. He said, God is not upset with my mom because my mom cried, and my mom, and he said, even when Jesus was going to, that Jesus had emotion, that it's okay, Mom, to have emotion, and you're okay. So, I know, but I'm also somebody who believes very much in the spiritual. I must be honest with you. I know that at the end of the day, a child of God must live by the Spirit, not by the flesh.
Yes.
The flesh make dictates. One of the things that happened to me when I was in the hospital at the time, when I was sick, was they said, "Oh, give me all this medication, all this." I'm like, it just came to a point. I'm like, I'm not taking. I said, I'm not doing this. And God helped me. Miracles happened. Me that was so sick, I was so much in pain. I was sick. I walked out of the hospital, no pain, well, minimal pain at the time, and in days, the pain, and I didn't take any medications. Because I'm not saying don't take medications. I'm just relating a miracle that happened to me. So, yeah, I believe that we should live in the Spirit and not just, the Bible says the things that we see, they are temporal.
Yes.
The things that we don't see, they are permanent. So the fact that you see pain, the fact that you see your symptoms, that's not what it is all about. You are not healed. The evidence of your healing is not in your symptoms, is not in your MRI result, is in the fact that you are already healed.
Yes.
And you begin to tap into that. So that's why what I meant when I say, oh, I'm a preacher, because this is what I believe. I know it. So why am I attending to the flesh? The flesh can be talking, but that's not what the Spirit is saying. The flesh needs to keep quiet.
Wow. Thank you. So as we round up, you mentioned that you are doing this research. Can you talk about it?
Okay. It's work in progress.
Well, the thing is, if you're not comfortable talking about it yet, you don't have to.
I will. Okay. I will. I won't say too much.
Okay, sure.
Just because I don't have conclusions. I don't want to say anything that, it's not verified yet. But yes, I am doing this research about cancer and food. And food as medicine, and cancer as a metabolic disease. Of course, there's lots of people who have done this research in the past, but I want to bring it together. I want to bring it to our community, to the African community and all of that, and what is peculiar to us. But more than all of that, what I will want to talk about today is there are options. There are options. And there's something called standard of care. Standard of care is not necessarily the best care for a cancer patient. It is not always the best care, and it is not the only option. So that's just something that I would want our viewers to take away, is that there are options. And like you rightly said, the internet is, of course, there's a lot on the internet that is wrong. People will come to you. In fact, that's one of the things people do when they hear that you have cancer. Be drinking ginger.
Go and juice.
Go and be juice. Another person, don't juice. People will just give you 1,000.
Eat raw food.
Eat raw food.
Don't eat this. Don't eat that.
Any raw food. Some people say, oh, just eat only this. Some people say, no.
Don't eat meat.
Fruits.
Don't eat fish.
Yes.
So what do you want to eat?
Exactly. So there's a lot of information in the air, of course. And that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this research. Honestly, I'm so excited about it. And there have been so many survivors who even did not take standard of care with end-stage cancers, and they beat the odds. So, and I'm not saying don't take treatment. I took treatment. So, full disclosure, I don't even know everything. I'm not even an oncologist. I'm not even a medical doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what? There's research, and they are peer reviewed. They are scientific. There are trials, clinical trials. A lot of information. So all I'm trying to do is to put it together so that in our community, in the African Cancer Support Group, we have something that without you spending, I've been doing this research now for a while, and so it's not something that you can just sit down and get everything, like you said, what is this, what is, Or sometimes somebody say, oh, do this. You don't even know that, oh, for prostate cancer, you can't do that.
Can't do that.
Or maybe for estrogen-positive cancer, this is, it may be good for colon cancer, but maybe for estrogen-positive, it's something that you shouldn't take. So those are the details, little details that we can put together so that at least there's a guide, there's something that propels people to look for more information, to be able to talk to their oncologist. The other day I was talking to somebody and I wanted to do some tests. There are some tests that you can't even do. And they are relevant. And the standard of care won't even let you do those tests.
Wow.
Can't even, they say, no, you can't do heavy mineral tests, you can't do this. And those are things that are, that it's good to know what you are even dealing with. So, you're just knowing that, okay, maybe if you can't do it, maybe there's a place you can go pay to do it.
Wow.
If you have to pay to do it, and those are things that we need to put together so that people know, oh, okay, I can't do this. Oh, if you wanted to try alternative treatment, knowing, oh, these are the doctors in the world that offers these services. Talk to them. It's not just maybe somebody, one day during my research, I called one hospital who says, oh, they have alternative. They say, oh, come and pay 60,000. But by the time I looked at it, when I looked at everything, they were not even offering anything. You can even do much more than that at home, just in your own home. So there are things like that. But there are also hospitals who are offering alternatives who would also complement your treatment, who would help you better. So just having all of that, that's what we're doing. And I'm just praying. And as I get more funding and all that, I'm doing it all by myself at the moment with help of some academicians and things like that. So we'll see. You'll be the first to know when it's all up.
No problem. Thank you. So, thank you, viewers. Once again, my name is Oladele, and we've been chatting with Pastor Bola Oladosu, who is a breast cancer survivor. We thank the Lord for her healing. We'll be having this conversation. And as we round up, Pastor Bola, do you have any last word that you would like to share with people watching you?
Oh, thank you so much again for having me. I think the last thing that I want to say is cancer is not a death sentence. It's not a death sentence. You don't have to walk this journey alone. It's a journey. It's a critical illness. Yes, it is serious. I'm not minimizing that at all. But you can get help. There are options. Don't take no for an answer. Advocate for yourself. It's your life. It's your job. Advocate for yourself. Don't wait for somebody to help you. If you get help, thank God, but advocate for yourself. Don't just take what the doctors say. I love my doctors. They are awesome. I love them. I mean it. I pray for them. They are God sent. But don't just take everything. Go research, ask questions, seek help, get more information. Please, there are options. You don't have to die. You don't have to die of cancer. And no matter what it is, live. Choose to live every day to the fullest. Don't let somebody tell you what you can do and what you cannot do. Do it. You have today. It's a gift from God. Do it. And trust God. As she said, I'm a pastor. I believe in the infallible word of God. God is a healer. Miracles happen. It's all over the world. Miracles are happening. So miracle can happen. And I pray for everyone that is going through this journey. I call it the healing journey. Just keep hoping, keep taking one step at a time, keep believing for the best, and keep living your life to the fullest. God bless you all.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Bola. Once again, my name is Oladele, co-founder of the African Cancer Support Group. We support cancer patients, survivors, caregivers, and their family members. And we also offer community awareness campaign, just to be able to give education to the community, to churches. If you would like us to come to your church or your community, please reach out to us. Our website is africancancer.ca, africancancer.ca. Once again, our guest is Pastor Bola Oladosu. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome. So thank you, everyone. And if you'd like to support us, this program is brought to you by individuals like you, by businesses, by corporations that are donating, that are sponsoring. If you'd like to partner with us, please reach out to us, africancancer.ca. Thank you and God bless.